My name's David. I'm the founder of 3 Points, and I do some other things with here and at Space and here in the music community. But when I got here in 2010, I did not know how to file my taxes. Okay, I did not know how to. Um, I thought I was in trouble with the IRS. I was like worried when I got here. I was like, shit, somebody's coming for me. I realized I didn't make enough money to that they didn't even give a fuck about me. So it was all good. Nothing bad came out of it. But I met a guy named Primo who was going to Bardo a lot, and we were, talking and smoking weed at Bardo as we did. And he was like, "Listen, there's a way if you open this up in an LLC that all your F and B and everything you do can start being tax deductible." And it blew my mind that at my some of my apartment payment that I was running out of a home office at the time, that my meals that I went out with people or my coffee were all part of these line items in an spreadsheet he gave me that I just kept track on. And I ended up being able to save a lot of money, file my taxes, and go forward. From there, it's like sacred knowledge. You learn it as you need. No one ever really tells it to you. It's kind of one of the fucked up things in this country, is that you don't get this information until you actually get to that level, and they gatekeep it, right? So some of this process that we're doing here is just at least have an open conversation. I was always ashamed that I thought I knew, but I never really knew. And then when you start up a company like 3 Points and now Space, you have to bring in professionals to help you and to guide you. Lori's been with us. She's been a savior for our business. She came in with Space in 2017, 18, yeah, and helped us clean up our books, helped us with our acquisition of Live Nation, made sure a bunch of promoters knew how to have accurate books, and now runs this place, keeps this place open for us. Many of our other holding companies, one of our future bars, Dante's, where Rich is at, and it's really knowledgeable. So without further ado, this is Lori Bucci and her associate, Lily. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, David. So I'm sure you guys have a slew of questions. I'm going to go over, brief summary of what each tax structure looks like, and then I'll give you my best recommendation for you based on your income levels, right? If you get to this tier, to that tier, what you should be classified as, right? So, and then Lily is going to go over how your invoice should look like to get paid from a venue, right? What all the things that need to be on your invoice so you can get paid quickly versus us having to email you back and saying, okay, we need this, 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 and this. So if you're all prepared and give us the invoice right off the bat, then you get paid faster, right? So we're going to start off with, you can switch. We're going to start off with what tax structures there are with the IRS. So the IRS, there's four tax structures. There's a sole proprietor, there's a partnership, there's a corporation where you can be taxed as an S Corp and a C Corp. And then everybody knows about the limited liability company. So the sole proprietor is one where you're not incorporated with the state of Florida, right? You're just your social security number and your name, and that's your business, right? So you don't need an EIN number. You don't need to be incorporated by the state of Florida if you're sole proprietor. All is reported under your social security number, and that's what you would fill out with your W-9. We'll go over how to fill out your W-9 later based on your tax structure that you picked as well. You report everything on your personal income tax return as a Schedule C. This is more likely to be audited by the IRS than any form that I'm going to talk about today. Because your Schedule C, they kind of think it's a hobby. They don't think it's a real legitimate business that you have because you did not incorporate your business and you didn't take those next steps to say that I am not a hobby, right? So for us, being a Schedule C reported on your 1099, on your 1040 is somewhat, I would say, questionable by the IRS because they think that you're underreporting your income and you're overreporting your deductions. So that's why they think it's easy to audit because you did not take that next step to incorporate, okay? Partnerships. Okay, so a partnership tax return is when you have more than one partner, right? So you could be a limited liability company and be taxed as a partnership. And the way that you're taxed as a partnership is if you have another partner. Okay? So you still get that limited liability protection if you are an LLC. So an LLC gets to be taxed three different ways, which we'll go over in a minute. So partnership tax return is with two partners. You have to be incorporated with the state of Florida. You have to file an annual report with the state of Florida or any state that you choose to be incorporated in. You would file a separate tax return from your personal tax return as a partnership tax return. And what it is all your income and all your expenses are still reported almost the same way as your Schedule C, but now it's on a separate tax return. The business is more what they think is more legitimized by it's not a hobby. You went the next step to file a separate tax return. And that partnership tax return flows to your 1040 in the form of what they call a K1. If you've ever invested in anything and someone gives you a K1, that's the reporting of all your income and it gets posted on your personal tax return. You also need a partnership agreement with your partners. So if you ever get in an investment with someone else, make sure you have a partnership agreement that you both sign because it states what happens if you want to exit, when you want to sell, and how the profit and losses are allocated within that partnership. So it's very important. I already talked about the pass-through entity. You would not, on a partnership tax return, you would not get what they call a W-2. You would get what they call guaranteed payments. So it's almost similar to a Schedule C because all of that income would be reported as self-employment income. Okay? You can stop me anytime you want if you have a question because I know I'm talking super high level. So just let me know, okay? And then you would have to do quarterly estimated taxes for your 1040 because you're not paying in with a W-2, okay? Same with the Schedule C. So go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. So a C Corp is all the taxes are paid at the C Corp level, okay? A C Corp is based on the corporate tax rates that the IRS change. They change a lot. Right now, it's anywhere from 22%. One time it was 40%. So each year, each different president changes the IRS tax rate of a C Corp. Okay, so the C Corp is mainly for foreigners, not for domestic people. I wouldn't recommend a C Corp for domestic people. Foreigners could have a C Corp because you don't have to be a U.S. person to own a C Corp. Okay. The issue with a C Corp return is you're double taxed. You're taxed when you make the money, you're taxed when you take the money out in the form of what they call a distribution. You get the one way to take additional tax out is to have a W-2 and zero out that corporation's profit by taking payroll out of the company. However, you're taxed all different ways. You're taxed at the foreign tax level, federal tax level, you're taxed at the payroll tax level, you're taxed at the Medicare level. The C Corp is the most taxed that you are if you form a C Corp. Okay? An S Corp is, I think, the way to go. But if you're an LLC, you can still be taxed as an S Corp, okay? So an S Corp, you have to be incorporated, you have to obtain an EIN. When you're doing those two things and incorporating, the most thing that people miss is filing the 2553, which is a small business election to be an S Corp. So what happens is when you file for your EIN, you're going to say, I want to be a corporation, right? If you don't file that 2553 and switch it to an S Corp, you'll be taxed as a C Corp, and you don't want that. So it's very important when you decide to open up your company and you make sure that you do those forms, the 2553. It's not that hard. Yes? You would have had to make an election to be an S Corp at the LLC level. Did you? No, you don't have to renew it. The first time you do it, you're always an S. The only way you can bust your S election is if you don't take payroll, meaning the IRS knows the game, and I'm going to explain the game to you in a minute. So the IRS knows that an S corp, what we tell people and what we recommend and have advice is you take your payroll, right? You take a W-2. Say, for instance, your net income is $100,000, okay? You take $50,000 in payroll and you get taxed on payroll taxes, right? Payroll taxes. Then the other $50,000 is not taxed at the payroll level, only at the federal level. So you're saving self-employment tax on the $50,000 that will flow to your 1040 and you only pay at the federal level. So what that means is the IRS wants to make sure that you have a reasonable compensation on your W-2 to justify your salary so you can take that other part of the income not taxed as self-employment tax.
So I'm currently filed with my business as an S corp.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a point in my business where I would need to change that to a different filing, or once I'm an S corp,
S corp is the best because I would stay with an S corp because the S corp, because think about it, the limited liability is obviously what you're going to create. The greatest thing about limited liability is you can be taxed all three structures. You can be taxed as a partnership, you can be taxed as a C corp, and you can be taxed as an S corp. So that limited liability protection you get by being an LLC. I'm not an attorney, but the way, if you ever get sued by your LLC, you can only be sued at the corporate level because you're at that LLC. You're at the LLC level, okay? The only way that they can get you is if you pierce the corporate veil, is what they call it. And that happens when you do not maintain your books and records accurately. That means, oh, I never opened a business bank account. That means I used my personal bank account. So that means you did not legitimize your LLC by creating the business account, by creating all the steps to make it a separate function of your personal life, okay? So that's very important to do, is to set up your books and records very good. You can use accounting software, QuickBooks, Mint, FreshBooks, whatever you want to use, but it's very important to keep accurate records. If you keep it in Excel, that's fine. You can do that as well. Yep. Well, yes, if you don't want to invest in an accounting software, which I recommend if you're invoicing, right? If you're invoicing people and you want to get paid faster, you should be using a system, right? Not Word documents, not PDFs. You should be using a system that is going to maintain your AR, right? All the people that owe you money, right? You have a consistent invoice being printed, and then we're going to tell you what the template should look like for your invoice shortly. That way, you have everything. You know what your financial background is going on. You know your financial statements. You know how much you're spending money on too much. You know, you're going to know everything if you maintain your books. And it's easier for you. I know that accounting is the last thing that people think is important, but it's actually very important because it's going to show you what you're spending too much on, what you're not spending too less on, that you should be spending more on. So you should take that next step to get an accounting software. There's a lot of them out there that aren't that expensive, and it's going to help you with your invoicing. I think the most important is for you guys to get paid faster and get your money right. So it's very important. If you don't want to go that route, yes, you can take an Excel file template. You can download all the information from your bank and allocate it, do pivot tables, do all that stuff that if you're an Excel guru or Google Sheet guru, you can do that as well, right? But yes, with the debit card, credit card, get a debit card or credit card that's just distinguishable for your business and your business only. Try not to commingle between personal and business. Try to use one. It's better to transfer money from your personal to your business in one dollar amount, like $1,000, because then you can categorize what you loaned the business to maintain the business. So you have that separate thing. It's going to help you and help whoever prepares your tax return at the end of the year, and it's cost less too for your tax prep, to be honest with you, if you're more well organized. Okay, so The S corp return also flows into your 1040, where you gets to your personal tax return. So this is the LLC. So you must be incorporated. You must obtain an EIN number. Must report your annual report. The limited liability protection I already talked about with the corporate veil. You can be classified as a single member LLC, C corp, S corp. Okay, so this is very important. We didn't talk about this. So if you have not elected to be an S corp, you are called a disregarded entity. So the IRS does not recognize your entity. And the reason why is because you file it on your personal tax return as a Schedule C. Okay? So a disregarded entity means even though you have an EIN number, they're still going to take your Social Security number. Okay? So the question is, when do I switch to an S corp, right? To do that next level. I say to do it when I advise to do it when you're making more than $50,000, right? When you're making more than $50,000, then you should go that extra step and start doing that C corp level, because then you're going to have to file a separate tax return and you'll have a little bit more cost. So it's okay to stay at that single member LLC status on your 1040 until you feel that you're at that next level to jump into that S corp, right? Because you have payroll taxes, you have to do a W-2 and so forth.
I was going to say, are there any downsides to filing as an S corp before you get to like that $50,000 around there mark?
As long as you have the money to pay for tax preparation fees and it's not an extra cost for you, yeah. You could be an S corp without payroll taxes and W-2 for a couple years as long as your income is low. But the question is, if you're always taking distributions out of your S corp and not paying self-employment tax on that money, then the IRS is going to frown upon it because you're not taking reasonable compensation out of the S corp. Okay, so as long as you're not doing it for multiple years without taking payroll, you should be okay, because you don't want the IRS to say that the only reason that you opened the S corp was to avoid self-employment income, right? So if that's the case, they would stop your S corp and you'll have to remain a corporation for the rest of that business. You'd probably have to open another business because you wouldn't want that to happen.
Is it worth it to open an LLC if I make less than 1,000, like for the, let's say a record label? Is it worth
You make less than $1,000 a year? Probably the reason why you would want to do it is for limited liability protection, because you could still, the cost of having an LLC is $138.75 a year, a single member. That's the annual report in the state of Florida. As long as you incorporate and put it up, that's all you got to pay for an LLC. It's $138.75 annual report for a single member LLC. So I think it's worth it for $138.75. What else? The single member LLC. Okay, so an LLC can also be taxed as a partnership. So some people don't want to go to the S corp level, right? So I tell my clients, hey, listen, you got a mom, you got a dad, give them 1%. Then you're a partnership return. Then you're less likely to be audited because it's not a Schedule C anymore. Now you're a partnership, you're not disregarded anymore. You give 1% to somebody else, you file a 1065 partnership or tax return, and that flows through to your 1040. So that's another way to get around it, right? Because the IRS, just talk about it. Say you have a single member LLC and it's a Schedule C, and you have $50,000 losses for 3 years or 4 years. You're probably going to get audited, okay? Because for 4 years, the norm is like 3 years. They know every business lose money the first 3 years of opening up, and that's pretty much normal. But if you're going to keep continuing that, you're definitely going to get audited, and they're going to disallow those deductions, and you're not going to want to have those, but interest and penalties for filing deductions that were not really deductible, right? So just think about it, right? You want to do it right the first time. You want to make sure that you're never on the IRS radar, and you want to put the deductions that are good, right? We're going to go over those in a minute. So next slide. Oh yeah, well, I already talked about this. It said, in my opinion, the best option for a U.S. person if over 150. If you want to do it before then, that's fine as well. You can go to the next slide. I already talked about this. You can keep going. Oh, let's briefly talk about this. Has anyone heard of the BOI reporting? Yeah? So it's been in the court system for a while. They keep flip-flopping it, saying yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Well, they just said yes again. So if you haven't filed them before the deadline, you thought, you have to do it by March 21st. March 21st is the new court date that says that you have to file your BOI. Okay, what is a BOI? It's just an informational return. It's similar to the annual report you file with the state of Florida, and you're going to do it for the Corporate Transparency Act. And basically, it's free. You just go to the website, you just fill out your information, and that's it. And they give you a FinCEN ID. It's simple, easy peasy. But if you don't do it, it's a $600 fine daily. Yes. So every entity has to do it, except there's exceptions like a trust and so forth. But an LLC has to do it. A C Corp, S Corp partnership has to do it. I'll get back to you on that. I'll Google it before I leave. It falls onto the LLC, but you don't. It's just an informational return, really. Just file it. It's free. Don't create headaches for yourself. It's not difficult to fill out. It's just your name, EIN, address, and the people who own the company. That's it. Okay? Okay, so accounting. We talked about briefly keeping books and accurate records. So the typical deductions for artists are auto, travel, equipment, studio expenses, advertising, professional fees, materials, your cell phone, meals, music software, equipment rental, and rent. It's the typical stuff that you can deduct on your return. The next, we're going to talk. Do we have any questions about the tax structure before we move on to the invoicing? Yes.
I had a question. You said give a percent to a family member. You're talking about giving a percent with an S corp. Can you just explain?
No, not the S corp. The LLC. If you did not want to turn your LLC into an S corp, you could turn your company and your LLC into a partnership, and that partnership can be owned 1% by someone, and you own 99% of the other. That's another way to make sure that you don't get audited by the IRS from putting all this stuff on your Schedule C on your 1040. It's just another avenue to get around. Anyone else? No? Okay. So this is yes. Yeah. No. It's not a sponsorship or no. So a partnership means you have two owners of your company. Okay, so you would own 99%, your mom, your dad, or your sister or brother, or a friend, whatever. They would own the other 1%, and that triggers the partnership tax return instead of being a single member LLC.
So not two business corporations partnering, but rather two people partnering under one business corporation.
Right. If you want two companies to partner, I suggest that you form another partnership, and then your two companies own that partnership. And then your own partnership stays intact because you don't want to have issues when you partner with people, because then it's hard to buy people out, right? So you'd want to open another partnership on top, or another LLC on top, and then your two LLCs would own that one LLC. Okay? That would be a better structure if you're going to partner up with a person who does the same thing as you and you want to get together. Yeah. Okay, so Lily, she is great. She's the one that receives all of your invoicing. And so she knows all the things that could help you get paid faster.
Hey guys. Yeah, so I see all of your invoices, and in order to make sure that you guys get paid in a timely manner, because trust me, we want to pay you guys as much as you want to get paid. There are a few things that we do like to see on your invoices. Um, this has happened actually quite a bit where people don't put their names or their business names on it. So I'm like, who is this? So that's important. Please put your name. Please also put your current mailing address and your contact information, like your emails and your phone number, in case we have to get it in touch. Um, yes. Also include your banking information, because sometimes we use bill.com to process invoices, and we're able to manually enter your banking information so you can get paid via ACH. But if we also have your email addresses, we'll send you an invitation to create your bill.com account so you could do it yourself if that's what you prefer. Just know that having the banking information on the invoices makes it a lot faster for us to process it. Another thing that's super important, please make sure that the invoice numbers are different. We've had issues where we've had duplicate invoice numbers and it complicates things for us. So just verify, please. Please,
And make them unique. Don't like put 001.
yes,
Make them unique numbers.
yes, because we have a lot of DJs that send us invoices, so we'll have like 7 different invoices, invoice 1. So yeah, please try to make them as unique as possible. Please also include your performance date on the description of the invoice. That helps us for accounting purposes. So that would also be super helpful if you guys could please include that as well. When you send invoices, generally you should also send your W-9s, because it has your information, like your address, what type of business you are, your social, or your EIN, which is also really important for us to know so that we know whether we got to issue you 1099s, etc. So that's also extremely important. I've seen people include the EINs on the invoices. That's super helpful. But generally, you want to send your W-9 as well. What else am I missing? Yeah, so once we receive your invoices, there's an approval process. So we let upper management approve the bills, make sure that the fees were agreed on by all parties. So we can't just pay you immediately as much as we want to. There is a bit of a process, but yeah, we just want to let you guys know that there is a process to these things.
The other thing is, if you do use a QuickBooks software or FreshBooks or Mint, and if you're sending those invoices through the software, make sure when you do your setup, you say attach the PDF of the invoice. Because bill.com, our inboxes in bill.com, cannot click on the link that is sent from your software. So you need to when you go to your setup in the software, there's a check the box. Do you want to add PDFs to all the emails that you sent out? So make sure you check that box, because bill.com does not read those links. We need that PDF copy. Okay, so that's very important. And a lot of people are not aware of that. So that's why I brought that up. Do you have a question? No. And then contracts versus invoicing. I know that the club has their contracts with the writers and all of that stuff. We also need an invoice that's separate from the contract. So please also send the invoice with the contract, because that's for accounting. The contract is for the ops guys, right? We need it for the invoicing. Okay. This isn't a sample copy of an invoice. This is straight out of QuickBooks. So we put the bank name, ACH routing wire. If you have a bill.com account and you have a payment network ID, that would be great, because then we can just attach to your account right away. We have the date of the show. The reason why that is important is because sometimes we prepay you before the show ever happens. In some cases not. Maybe we're just paying you at the show. So we need to make sure that our accounting is right, and we want to book that that expense in the right month. So it's very important to have that date of the show. Yes. Yes. So do you currently use accounting software? Okay. So in QuickBooks, I'm sure it's all of them. In the setup, when you set up your invoicing, there's a button. It says, do you want to attach the PDF copy to the invoice? You need to make sure on that initial setup that you attach it, because if you don't, the software is just going to send a link for us to view the invoice, to download the invoice. And so that's another step that we have to do. If you just put the PDF a copy with it, it makes it faster. You're welcome. So next. Yeah. QuickBooks works if you QuickBooks, you can use Simple Start. Simple Start, I think, is like $20 a month, $20 a month. That will do your invoicing and your accounting. QuickBooks, you can actually download your bank account on it, and it downloads all your information on a daily basis. So as long as your bank is connected, the data is in there. You just have to post it to where you want it to post. Yeah. Yeah. I use QuickBooks. My entire practice uses QuickBooks Online, so I'm always going to plug that one. Sorry. Xero, I've used Xero before, but I don't like it, because when you say you're doing a bank rec, it really is not doing it. So QuickBooks has little bells and whistles that actually know that your accounting is complete. But there's FreshBooks, Mint, I think. No. But right. There you go. Wave is free. You can use that. How many people have Bill.com accounts in the room? You can also use that platform for invoicing as well if you don't want to use a separate accounting software. Here's another form of an invoice. Same thing. You fill in the blanks. This is the W-9. So a lot of people fill this out incorrectly. So if you're a single member LLC, see, it says disregarded entity. Maybe I should stand over here. It says disregarded entity. So you have to put your name here, not your entity name, right? This is where the entity name goes, okay? And then you're supposed to check off the right boxes, right? If I'm an LLC and I'm taxed as a C, S, or P, then you have to put one of those initials on the other side, okay? So it tells you, if you're a disregarded entity, instead check the box for the tax classification of it's an owner, right? Because they consider you a sole proprietor, actually, when you're a disregarded entity, okay? And then you can, on the bottom, put both your social security number and EIN. But the 1099 should be, the 1099 should be issued to your social security number. So scroll over a little bit over here for me. So it tells you sole proprietorship or disregarded entity owned by an individual should have the owner's social security, okay? So a lot of times these W-9s are filled out if you're a single member LLC. So it's very important that you fill them out right, because that's how we know how to issue you your 1099 correctly. Because if that 1099 is issued incorrectly, the IRS sends the company a letter, and it says we can't match that name with that number, right? And so then we have to, reach out to you, find out, stuff like that. What do you? It's okay. No, this is only if you're a single member LLC, okay? Yes. If you're an S Corp, we're not required to issue you a 1099. So that's why it's important that this is correctly filled out, right? Because the W-9 tells us who we are responsible to issue to, okay? Anyone else? Questions? Okay, yes. Yes, yes, yes. Your tax professional would have to, well, no, not actually your tax professional. It's the company. So Jolene, if you worked for Jolene Sound Room, Jolene would have to issue you a 1099. Space Invaders would have to issue a 1099 and so forth. So whoever you work for, right? You send me an invoice to pay you, then I have to issue you a 1099 for the services that you provided. And the only way for me to accurately do that correctly is if this is filled out correctly, right? So it's very important to have the invoice right, bring your invoice in, give us your W-9 all at the same time, because then it helps everybody in the process. It helps you get paid faster, it helps it get approved faster, and then at the end of the year, we're not, the company is not chasing everybody around for their W-9 form. So it helps everybody. You should fill out an invoice, and then a W-9. Yes. Anyone you work for. Anytime. Well, once you play if you're a repeat player, then you only have to send it once. The invoice every time. But the W-9, once we have it on file, you don't have to send that all the time. Every club you play for. Yes. As I mentioned earlier, the IRS audits Schedule C's more than any other report, right? So you report that all on your 1040, which is your personal income tax return. So that Schedule C has your income and expenses. The IRS feels that you're underreporting your income and you're over-reporting your expenses. So it's more likely that they will audit that return than they would the other returns. Correct. Yes. Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about maybe like foreign entities, like the WAB, for example?
Right. So.
An agency overseas that's doing management, or that are being scouted by management companies and things like this.
Sure.
How do they keep track of like their manager actually doing their job, right? Their agent actually doing
Wow.
not legal advice.
So what I would do if I was the artist and someone was managing my business for me, I would ask for reports. I would ask for all the income and all the expenses that you have paid on my behalf. They should have a ledger for you. They should have all the income they've taken in for you, and they should be able to produce those reports for you. And they should do that on a monthly basis, okay? No different than a W-9, there's a W-8 and a W-8 Ben. We have to, Jolene Space, have to issue what they call 1042s to the foreign individual that received that money. Whether or not we pay the agency, we're issuing it to you, your 1042, so you can put it on your U.S. tax return, okay? But you should get with your agency, frequently talk with your agency, because lack of communication is not an excuse for not knowing, right? You communicate, you ask questions, they need to provide you the information, and they will if you ask the questions. But if you think everything is, 1 minute? One more question. So, yes. I am not an immigration attorney, so I can't answer that question. I'm sorry. Okay.
So, as a small organizer, you end up becoming the club space with Jolene that is paying people, right? So, I feel like I'm in the other end of that, where like I'm not really making much money from the events, but I'm paying most of the money that I'm making, right? Accounting wise.
So you're the organizer and you're paying your staff to run the event.
Well,
and the DJs.
Yeah.
Okay.
So accounting wise, I guess I'm asking for the other POV of that.
So you would need to really price out your contracts better if you're not making any money, right? How you're budgeting your organization, your event, because your event, if you're not making money, then your budgeting needs some work, right? Right. Right. We can talk after. That's a lot. Right. Yes. No different than Jolene or Space does. You two also need to get W-9s with their invoices, same thing, issue their 1099s so you can take the deductions, because the IRS knows if you're taking a deduction for a contractor, they want to find that income on the other side, right? Yeah. Yes, that's true. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. That's still over $600 collectively. However, you're never going to know that till the end of the year. And that's why you need to get the W-9 now, right? You just assume that everybody's going to be over $600, because if not, then you're going to be chasing everybody at the end and you're not going to find them. Yep. Well, I am on that other side. I run Jolene for David. So what I give David is I give him monthly financial reports. I give him cash flow reports. I communicate with him all the time, and I tell him how the business is going. Me and Adam talk all the time. We have a WhatsApp chat. You should be communicating whoever's running your books and records every day. It should be like they're an extension of your arm. Like you're always talking to them to find out what's going on. It should be constant. Yep. Yep. Meaning, if a foreign DJ comes and works for Jolene, we issue, even though we're paying the agency, we're withholding the federal withholding tax because we have to withhold from that foreign DJ. And then we issue a 1042 to the IRS. Jolene has to issue a 1042 to the IRS showing that that foreign DJ made X dollars and we withheld the money for them in order for them to get their money back from the IRS. You should be withholding from your foreign DJs. Well, the 1042 gets filed at the end of every year. They're due March 15th. But they should have a ledger already of how many, because they have to readmit that federal withholding to the government right away. It's not something that they can wait to do. So as soon as that DJ plays, they're supposed to readmit the federal withholding. So they should have a ledger that shows all their foreign DJs and all the ones that they need to issue a 1042 at the end of the year. They should have that readily available for you if you ask. Sure. Of course. You have to trust the person that you're working with, right? I mean, it's all about integrity and trust in this business. I'm sorry, it is. I mean.
I can answer that. I've had really good partners. I have a couple of really good partners right now, and I've had really bad partners. I've had more bad partners than I've had good partners. So that's just the nature of the business, like you said. Especially here in Miami, there's the swamp. It's thick, and you have to keep your head on a swivel, and you have to probably, at the bare minimum, do a quarterly meeting with your team, whoever your partners are, every quarter. That's, you just sit down with them, open books, look at it together, ask your questions. And, some organizers are not like Jolene, where we operate 3 nights a week. So we talk a lot because there's a frequency of the business. If you're organizing a couple events in the first part of the year, or maybe 5 throughout the year, something like that, you should just talk 4 times a year at the end of each quarter and just talk about it.
Can you go to the next slide? The next one, sorry. There's my contact information and Lily's as well. If you guys have any questions, if they want, yeah. What we'll do, and I think we'll figure out a way to get it to you guys. Maybe we can just post it for you guys, and we can archive it on MCR, and her, Lori and Lily's presentation can be just for you guys, okay? So why don't we figure out a way to get that, and we'll make sure that it's something that goes up on an MCR in 3 points, okay? Cool. Thank you, guys. If you are here for the organizer thing, please show proof that you're here for the organizer thing. I think it's going to be a little bit more busy if you want to go outside and then come back in and are okay with standing for that area. But we got to make seat for the people that RSVP'd. Okay? Thank you. Good?